So if you follow the steps in this video, you'll be surprised, maybe even amazed by how well you can draw in 12 months time. Now that is a big claim, a big promise, but I feel like by the end of the video, you'll agree it's pretty reasonable. My name's Kenzo and this is Love Life Drawing. So when you're learning a principle of drawing or painting, when you're trying to build a specific skill, I think you need to build up two things: your knowledge, like the understanding of that thing in your brain, but also the actual skills, which I like to think of as being more in your eyes and in your arm that you're drawing with. So when it comes to the knowledge, I think at first it gets worse, like the graph goes down a little bit. And that's because in the beginning, it's kind of overwhelming. There's these new ideas that don't make sense, and I feel like I understand less after starting to learn something than I did before. But then after just a little bit more perseverance, it starts to make sense. The knowledge starts to go up, and it doesn't take too long for that to happen. So that's great. And then after you've learned the basics, it starts to plateau a little bit. You just start to refine your knowledge. The tricky part is the skills. So firstly, they go up and down. You can see I got it like a zigzag there. They go up and down from session to session. One session you think maybe you're getting it, and then the next one you're like, no, I don't get this at all. The really hard part is here though. You have this period where your understanding of this thing is going up, but your skills are not going up. And this is a really dangerous moment because a lot of people will give up here. But if you just persevere a little bit longer, there is often a breakthrough moment where it starts to turn into skill. You can see I have the skill graph going up higher than the knowledge graph because at some point your skill actually exceeds your understanding. Like your arm and your eye are able to put down marks that are really awesome, and you don't exactly know how you're doing that. It's just intuitive. So what would happen to me is I'd be trying to improve my skills. I'd be pretty confident in the beginning, pretty upbeat. And then I would fall flat on my face in this period where the skills just aren't going up, even though I'm starting to understand it better. And I'd feel so dejected and demotivated and think it's all my fault, I just don't have the talent, and I'd give up before I ever got to the really good part of the learning curve. I would be giving up just before the real improvements happened. And all I needed to do was have a little bit more discipline, be a little bit more, what do they call it? Stick-to-itiveness, right? And then I would get that really lovely part of the learning curve and have these breakthroughs. You can see at the bottom, I've got this as being a matter of weeks. And for some topics, for some bigger topics, we're talking more like a couple of months. But for some, it's just a few weeks. And it depends how big of a topic, how broad it is. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But my point is, when you break it down to an individual topic and you really want to learn one topic, it doesn't take forever, but you just can't expect massive results super quickly. You got to give it a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, and then you're going to realize that if you do that, you're going to get to these breakthrough moments, these wonderful steep parts of the learning curve every time. So to me, plans sound boring. Planning is for when you want to renovate your kitchen or you have to organize a wedding or something. I don't want art to be really meticulously planned out all the time. You know, I want it to be spontaneous and expressive. But we've got to differentiate here between creating artwork and learning the principles of drawing and painting. Because learning the principles of drawing and painting is a fairly long, kind of complicated project. And when you have a project like that, you have to have a plan if you want it to succeed. And I'm not talking about, you know, some crazy Excel spreadsheet and strategy document to plan the whole thing out. Just something really simple where you focus every month on an important principle of drawing and painting to the point where you can make it a real skill. So check out this planner. It's super simple, which is important, I think. It's also not supposed to be rigid. It's not supposed to control everything you do. It's supposed to just be a reminder about what one or two topics you're focused on each month and to stick to that focus area for enough time so that you can get to that really wonderful bit of the learning curve. So the topics should be fairly specific. So rather than just, I'm going to learn how to draw backs this month, it could be something more like, I'm going to learn the structure of the back in terms of its anatomy, something like that. Then to go with the topic, you can set yourself a goal, and the goal should be also specific and realistic. So rather than just be amazing at this thing by the end of the month, it's going to be more like, I'm going to be able to pick out the muscles on a muscular model's back in different poses by the end of the month. Then there's boxes at the bottom for each day of the month that you can cross off for every day that you practice. And so you want to see most of the days being crossed off. So you're building up a nice streak of days practice, because consistency is a big thing. Try not to have 2 consecutive days without a cross. And if you're practicing intelligently and you're doing it consistently, you're going to see massive improvements. That's just how it works. If you want to take your learning further and take it more seriously, I've recorded a workshop. It's free. There should be a link below, and you can see how focusing on the simplest aspects of the figure are going to give you the best results. And I'm also going to show you some of our new course. So check it out below. So what should you actually put in? What should the topics be every month? So one topic, if you haven't studied it much, is perspective. It's really worth spending some time with it. We have a couple of good tutorials on it on this channel I'll link to below. I would say rather than trying to develop your perspective know-how to a really advanced level with more and more advanced perspective ideas, what's more important is to get a good intuitive skill with basic perspective. So if you can end a perspective-focused month with the ability to intuitively draw a box pretty well, or maybe create a street scene with different buildings from your imagination, from your mind, those are quite good goals to have. So being really skilled with basic perspective. If you're a beginner interested in drawing people, learning the main landmarks on the figure is a great place to start. We actually have a beginner series on our channel. It's the first thing we ever made. If you haven't seen it, obviously our course is absolutely amazing for this as well. One thing you don't need to do is get into super complicated anatomy early on. You've got to keep it simple, but get really good at it. So that's kind of a theme. You don't need to get super deep if you're a beginner into anything. You need the basics, and then you need to get so good and confident with them that they're intuitive. So observational skills. So very often when you're drawing from life, you need to be able to gauge how far something is from something else, or what the angle is between 2 points. And at first you can do that manually by holding up your pencil, and there's a little bit of learning how to do that. It doesn't take that long to learn how to do that. But the big thing again is that you want to develop your skills with this so that you don't need to do manual measuring as much, so that you can gauge proportions and angles more intuitively. And that will be a good goal for a month of study. Gesture. This one, in my opinion, is for people who have had a little bit of experience with their figure drawing. And it's kind of a broad topic, and sometimes it can be kind of a vague topic. One way to make this more specific is to set your goal. For example, complete our Figuary series from 2020, which is on our channel, that we made together with Croquis Cafe. Croquis Cafe is an amazing resource for figure drawing if you don't know about that already. So that's one way. Gesture is a really, really important topic, but it doesn't have to be super confusing. You can break it down into specific things. The next topic is that anatomy area that you've been avoiding, and you know what I mean. So there's that area of the figure that you don't tend to draw, that you leave out, or you don't really know what's going on there in terms of anatomy. You've been avoiding it, and that is the perfect area to zoom in on for a month of study. Another topic is line quality. So using simpler marks, using C-shaped curves, S-shaped curves, and straight lines only, and learning to use those with more confidence and boldness. You could focus, for example, on emulating the mark making of your favorite 1 or 2 artists by studying their drawings. And then some other topic areas would be things like simplifying values, learning to better design the shapes that you use, color and light, composition, drawing from imagination, a particular material like drawing digitally or painting with gouache. Those are fairly broad, so you might need to choose something specific within those bigger areas. The possible topics are kind of endless in art, but hopefully that's given you some ideas for how you're going to fill in your plan for the next 12 months. If you are earlier in your learning journey, It is tough. It is more confusing when you're still getting to grips with the basics. But the good news is that your potential for growth in that medium to long term, like your potential for improvement, how much you can improve across 1 year, is huge. It is massive. You can completely transform yourself. People who have been practicing for a longer time, they have to work harder to get little improvements in what they're doing. But if you're early on, you can see complete transformation in what you're able to do across a year or two. Not in weeks, not in one session, but if you're consistent and you focused across a year or two. Okay? We can do this. So I hope you guys have a happy new year. If you're not watching this in the new year, I hope you have a good day and I'll see you in the next video.